Hello everyone. In the next several videos I want to explore hylomorphism as a theory of the human person. Well, what is a human person according to hylomorphism? Well, there are two ways to get at what a person is according to hylomorphism. The first way in which you can get at what a human person is you can define a human person with respect to other things. You can find the place for us in Aristotle's and Aquinas' larger ontology, their larger taxonomy of the universe, and see how we fit into this larger picture and how we are distinguished from other things. That's the one I want to talk about today. The other way to get at what a human person is on the hylomorphic framework is to break the human person down into his or her parts, not literally or conceptually, of course, to understand what is our nature by looking at what are our key components, what are our essential components, what are our essential capacities. And that's the way that I'll look at it in the next video. So for this one, what I want to do is I want to take you through a chart, a handout that I've given you. A bunch of the stuff that we'll talk about in the next couple of recordings is stuff that I was already talking about for the last couple of lectures that we were able to have in person. So they'll be review for those of you who are there. But I wanted to include all of the lectures on hylomorphism on Canvas for those of you who weren't able to join us with those lectures. So today I want to talk about the Aristotelian Thomist ontological map in order to figure out where the human person fits in this scheme. So in order to follow along, I'm going to be going off this handout here, which I handed out in class, which I've also made available on Canvas. It's a kind of flow chart to figure out where we fit in a larger scheme of things. So if we look at the very top of the handout, the most general category of things is being, under which includes everything that exists. The most basic distinction between things that exist is the distinction between substances or things and their accidents or attributes. We have various things, and we have various features or attributes that those things have. Under the category of attributes, we include things like their quantities, their qualities, their relations, their size and their shape, their powers and their dispositions. Those will all fall under the accidents or the attributes. Under things, the most basic distinction is a distinction between incorporeal or immaterial substances and corporeal or material substances. Under incorporeal immaterial substances, we have things like angels and demons. Demons are just angels who made a bad life decision. Under the category of corporeal or material substances, the most basic distinction is between substances proper and artificial bodies or artifacts. So the distinction between substances and artifacts, or natural bodies and artificial bodies. It says exactly how the distinction goes, but the rough sketch is that the substances proper are those things out there in the world prior to any intervention from us, whereas the artifacts, the artificial bodies, are things that we make, such as houses and saws, and even bodies of people are going to count as artificial bodies, like communities, that sort of thing. Under the category of natural bodies or substances proper, and I should also say the artifacts, the reason why they don't count as substances proper is the way that Aristotle and Aquinas are understanding these things, is that they are collections or heaps of smaller substances. And so while artifacts aren't themselves substances, they are composed of substances. They are groups or collections or heaps of smaller substances of natural bodies. But let's talk about natural bodies, or the substances proper. The most basic distinction between natural bodies or substances proper is the distinction between living substances and non-living substances. This is a really important distinction for Aristotle and for Aquinas. They think there's a really hard line between whether something is living or not living. We might wonder whether there is as hard of a line as they think there is, but this is the way that they're going to distinguish between substances proper. The non-living substances are going to include things like elements and mixed bodies. Now, elements for Aristotle and for Aquinas mean something specific. Elements are those smallest material substances that there are, things that cannot be split any further into anything smaller. They are something like philosophical atoms. Not atom in the sense that we use the term, but philosophical atoms in the sense that they cannot be split further into anything that isn't just more of the same. So Aristotle has this idea that the elements are water, fire, earth, and wind. And he thinks that whenever you have some water, you can split that portion of water, but all you'll get is just two smaller portions of water. And he thinks that you do that indefinitely, right? He doesn't have our contemporary chemical understanding of how water is composed. The contemporary version of this chart would replace elements with whatever is the smallest material thing. Maybe subatomic particles, maybe quarks and leptons turn out to be the smallest material things. Maybe they are our modern day elements. And then mixed bodies will include any substances that that are a bunch of elements put together in the right way so as to produce something new, some new mixed body. They're going to include chemical compounds, probably minerals, maybe things larger than that, maybe not. But if we look at the category of living material substance or living corporeal substance, the most basic distinction here for Aristotle Aquinas is the distinction between sentient living creatures and non-sentient. And what we mean by sentience here is whether something can engage in some kind of sense perception, whether it has any of the five senses. Aristotle thinks that every animal, by definition, has at least one of the five senses. It has at least the sense of touch. He thinks that's the most basic. Anything that doesn't have any of the senses, not even the sense of touch or any kind of sense of sight, but is still alive, that thing counts as a plant. Now, under the category of animal, then we can further split that. So living things that have at least one of the five senses, a lot of animals have all five senses. You can split that category into the rational animals and the non-rational animals. The non-rational animals are all of those other creatures besides human beings that don't have the capacity for rationality. However, we understand that. We'll see in a future lecture exactly how Aristotle is understanding rationality and what it is he thinks that sets us apart from other creatures. But you notice that once you split the animal category into rational and non-rational, now we get down to human beings. Human beings are under the category of animal, but we are unique among other animals in that we are rational. We are the rational animals. And then, of course, if you break that down further, you get human being, not just particular types of human beings, but you can talk about the parts of a human being, which, as we'll see, are matter and form, our hand and eye and bone and flesh. I'm going to talk about the bits and pieces of the human being, of the human person, in the next lecture. But what we get from this chart then is a sense of how to define human beings so as to distinguish them from all other things. If you start from a place where human beings are located on the chart and you define up, you'll get that a human being is a rational, sentient, living, natural, corporeal substance that exists. And so you get something like the definition of the human person, of the human being, is that we are rational, sentient, living, natural, corporeal substances. Or for short, you can just specify that human beings or human persons are rational animals. Animal already incorporates the living, natural, corporeal substance, so you can just, with shorthand, say that the human person is a rational animal. And so that's the first way of getting at what a human person is on the hylomorphic framework. We are animals, so we are sort of down here in the muck with other living creatures, but we are unique among them in that we have some special capacity for rationality, which I'll explore exactly what that means in a future lecture. So on the hylomorphic framework, first question, what is a human person? Well, the first way to get at that is to offer a definition of the human person that distinguishes it from all other things. And this chart helps us to do that. What is the human person? The human person is a rational animal. It has rational capacities, but also sentient capacities.